Hello everyone and welcome back to another exciting episode of 8 Dead Giants. It's episode 5 already. God, this time just flies. I'm trying to find some energy, and you might say I may be trying to artificially manufacture it because it's a bit of a sleepy bank holiday here in the UK as we record this. It's warm, but it's overcast. It's kind of relaxed, kind of Saturday vibes. But I'm really excited today because I've got another one of the Giants joining me to record, and it's another new Giants return. This Giant is Mass Effect expert, geek queen, Leah.
Hi. I don't know how I feel about being a giant.
We're all giants.
Like, I'm really, really tall.
We're all giants. We're all giants. So yeah, it's good to have you on. We've got some interesting bits and pieces to talk about that Leah is kind of going to be driving the conversation on a few of the things. But I'll give us a quick rundown now, as I do at the beginning of this episode, so you guys know what to expect. Though I have noticed, like in the After Dark episode last week, where I said some things in the rundown we didn't then talk about because on the fly I changed up what we were going to do. I don't know if anybody else noticed that, but I'll try and keep us on track, or just you guys just need to accept sometimes I'm just gonna throw the curveballs. So we're going to be talking about some video games. That's the Giant number 1, and that'll be Oblivion Remastered. We're going to talk about in Giant number 2 movies, and that's going to be a review of Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning, a review of the Minecraft or a Minecraft movie, and a review of Fountain of Youth, all of which are pretty new releases, some just out in the cinema and streaming. A Minecraft movie's been out a little while longer, but I finally got around to watching it. Then for the third Giant, we're going to talk about some books. Empire of the Vampire by J. Kristoff. That's going to be an interesting one that Leah's going to be bringing to the table. Very, very intrigued to find out about that. Then we're going to be following up with the next Giant, which is going to be TV shows, in which we'll maybe talk a bit about Van Helsing and Tracker. And then if we've got time, maybe a little bit about the new show on Apple TV Plus, Murderbot, and the finale of The Studio. And finally, we're actually going to wrap up with a Giant we haven't spoken about yet on the show, which is music. And we're going to talk a little bit about the return of Linkin Park, the From Zero album, and the new special edition re-release of that's just landed as well. So there's a packed show. We've got lots to get over. So I think with that, we'll take a quick break, a little pause, and we'll get straight into video games. So, Leah, I touched upon Oblivion Remastered when it came out, and we talked about it a few weeks ago, but I barely started it, and I'm certainly not a fan in the same way that I know you are. So I want you to talk a little bit about Oblivion Remastered and where your love for this comes from.
So the original Oblivion, I think 300 hours plus. It's just so fun. It's kind of like my chill game, even though you're going around in like going into dungeons and killing everything you come across, pretty much, apart from horses and deer. It's just so much fun. It's, for me, I enjoy it more than I did Skyrim. Skyrim made the controls a bit too user friendly, and I like more options when I'm spellcasting. But it's just such fun, and the remastered, it looks amazing. They've still got the proper voices like Patrick Stewart being the Emperor, Uriel Septim, I believe. It's just so much fun. I mean, you've played a little bit, haven't you? What did you think of the graphics?
Yeah, I think the port house that dealt with it has done it. I did make a note of it when I first talked about it, but I can't remember who it was now that's ported this and done this up-res sort of. They're calling it. Is it called a remastered or is it called a remake? I can't remember. I think
it's called remastered.
Remastered, okay, because it's not a remake, and it is just a graphical overhaul, and I think it is a big step up over what Oblivion did originally look like, and I think it's now probably looks a bit nicer than Skyrim without graphic mods as well. So it does feel much more modern and therefore accessible to a modern audience. It's still very much at its core the same game though, isn't it?
Yes, definitely. Which I appreciate. I don't need Oblivion to be anything more than the amazing thing it was the first time I played it. Yes, looking better is great, and it's easier to go from more modern games to Oblivion now than it was without that. Oh my god, how did I ever think that looked good? But now it looks really, really good. I mean, you're still getting the kind of things that you got in the original Oblivion, like deer stationary as you walk past them. And if you try and craft potions too quickly, the game does not like it. But that's Oblivion to me. I've dealt with that before and I can deal with it again. It's just, I love crafting potions. I'm currently on the Mages Guild quest on the way to becoming Archmage. Again, if anyone hasn't played Oblivion, it's ages old and spoilers, sorry. I just love it. It's so relaxing. It's so relaxing, even though you're kind of murdering evil people.
You prefer the combat in Oblivion to Skyrim, don't you?
Yes, I do. I mean, you just hack and slash and kill things with spells. It's a lot better. I mean, the spell wheel in Oblivion is the thing that I really liked over Skyrim, because with Skyrim, it was more, you just launched 2 spells from your hands. So you only really had 2 options unless you went all the way back to the menu to switch between them. The spell wheel is much better because it's a wheel and you can bring it up. You don't have to go 10 million things back into the menu to change your spells. So
how many hours have you put into the remaster at this point?
It must be about 30 or 40, something like that. Just playing it of an evening after I've had my tea and whatnot.
That's cool.
Just really relaxing.
So you're basically back in and hooked.
Yeah.
It's good. Yeah. It's nice.
So good.
So anything else you wanted to sort of mention around Oblivion?
There is. I mean, they've changed one little thing, which is a kind of annoying change, but it's really, really neat. Just when you go into the map, you used to be able to flick between the world map and wherever you were. Now you have to zoom all the way in, and that is not a good change. I do not understand why people have done that, but that is the only thing I have bad to say about the remaster. Is this slightly annoying map change?
Yeah, I heard about that. It's weird. Why? I wonder why they've decided to make that change. It's strange. It doesn't seem.
I honestly haven't got.
Doesn't
Scooby.
Seem like a step forwards.
No, not at all. Not at all. I mean, the character creator when you make a character, it's some of them can look a bit weird. I had to fiddle with the settings manually quite a lot to make my Dunmer not look hella weird, but I got there in the end. I think that might be something to do with the remaster because they didn't look that weird in the first place. But that's the only 2 things I can think of.
Yeah, I remember when I first booted it up and I was trying to get into the game quick and I was just doing randomized characters just to have a character to go, and they all looked like utter horror unless I picked a class that was particularly non-human looking to start with. Otherwise, they all looked really, really horrific. And I wonder if that's got something to do with the way a combination of the RNG and then a combination of the new engine with the slider parameters from the original settings from the original game, and how, because the new engine's so much more high resolution and is able to offer so much more texture detail, the settings are everything just looks a bit off and wrong and up to 11 is the only way to describe it.
Not bulging eyes, but prominent eyes, prominent brow features, prominent cheekbones. It was all getting a bit into demon territory, which they aren't. So it was a bit weird, but you can fine tune it and you can make them look more humanoid and kind, I guess, because they looked a bit scary when you first started looking at the presets. So yes, I'm going to spend hours on it again, just hours. It's so relaxing.
Is it building your hype for a new Elder Scrolls?
Well, whenever one comes out. I mean, how long has it been since Skyrim?
A long time. Yeah, really long time.
A long time. I don't really like playing online, so Elder Scrolls Online is not for me. I don't need that. I want a proper Elder Scrolls single player campaign, please, and thank you. Yeah.
Brilliant.
Is it good? I think it's going to be something to do with Redguard, isn't it, the new one?
I'm not sure they've really said anything, to be honest, at this point.
Yeah, I mean, a couple of screenshots have been released, maybe, and that's about it.
Yeah, I remember seeing the teaser when it was first announced, but I'm not really sure we've had much since then, because it's still very early. They were making other games in between, so Starfield was a big focus for them, and I think they are now fully developing the Elder Scrolls game, but possibly not due to the popularity of Fallout, for example. So it's hard to say what they're next focus and direction will be. I know Starfield didn't get the warmest of receptions, so maybe they're a little bit unsure as to what comes next.
Yeah, I mean, I liked Starfield. I really do, and I'm like still playing it, but Oblivion just calls to me. Calls to me in my sleep.
Well, I haven't been playing a lot of games this week. I will quickly mention that I did boot up Star Wars Outlaws again briefly, and I think I might put some more time into that. That game got a lot of bad press at launch. They've done a lot of patching to make the gameplay a little bit better and a bit more accessible and a little bit less kind of unfair and janky in places, so it did feel better, I have to say, when I went back to it yesterday and the day before. So I think I might put some time back into that, because it is a really great rendition of the Star Wars universe, and I'm very much into that off of Andor at the moment. So yeah. Andor was absolutely incredible, but maybe I'll talk about this in a bit more detail in subsequent episodes. But for now, I think that wraps up the Video Game Giant, and we'll be back shortly with some in-depth discussion and reviews of 3 big movies. Yeah, so it's time to talk about movies. Definitely back into going to see films in the cinema. Really enjoying that at the moment. And with that in mind, just saw yesterday Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. And it really was a film best seen in the cinema. It had a huge scope visually to it. It even opened with Tom Cruise thanking us for our patronage in the movie theatre, as he described it. And I thought that was that was very telling to me. I thought it was very interesting. It very much indicates where the industry is at and how some creators are really fearful of the demise of cinema and how streaming services are affecting the types of films that are getting made because of the types of audiences, and how they consume film is starting to dictate more and more what is actually being produced and funded. And so I think Tom coming up and talking to us all one-on-one there and thanking us and you know, talking about his love for cinema was pretty awesome. I mean, you saw Mission Impossible as well, didn't you, Leah? So what did you think of that bit with Tom Cruise?
I thought it was nice. I don't know if there was a hint of, oh crap, shove Tom Cruise out there, because everyone likes Tom Cruise, and if he says we should go to the movies, then we should go to the movies. It just seemed a little hint of that to me about it.
Sort of desperation.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see what you mean. It did feel a bit desperate, yeah. But at the same time, that won't be on the Blu-ray, right? So he's literally only talking to the people in the cinema at that moment. So I'm not sure if you could call it desperate, because it's already talking to those that have been convinced to be there. Do you know what I mean? So it was more, I think, more of a heartfelt thanks for your support and money, because famously, Dead Reckoning, the previous film, performed quite a lot short of their expectations in the box office for that film. Obviously, you know, it was post-pandemic, and there were a lot of challenges at the time of its release. People were not going to the cinema, but it was way low, which is part of the reason why they retooled what the film we got to see yesterday, which is The Final Reckoning, was originally going to be Dead Reckoning Part 2, and instead they've rebranded it, restructured it, put a focus on this being a conclusion to the entire Ethan Hunt storyline, and I think that's very much in the hopes of getting people back into the cinema to watch the film as a big kind of experience, if you are or have ever been a Mission Impossible fan. And it was certainly quite heavily loaded towards that, especially in the beginning of the movie. In the first act, there were extensive flashbacks using clips from previous films to do everything it could to sort of set it in the context of the Ethan Hunt experience that you've been with him on for well over a decade, since the 90s. I think the first Mission Impossible movie came out. So I thought that was clever, but a little bit pandering, and a little bit that felt desperate. That felt very like, hey, you remember these cool things that you saw 20 years ago? This is going to be like that. And it was like trying to utilize nostalgia to create entertainment, which is obviously a very popular thing and has been for a while now. I'll never forget South Park's lampooning of that with the member berries. Member, do you
Yeah,
remember?
I remember that. Yeah,
You know, member.
berries.
And it's like, you know, just trying to utilize your memories of other things you've enjoyed previously in the past as sort of a currency to encourage people to engage with current output. And that's also a little bit devoid of fresh ideas and fresh creativity.
Yeah.
I'm possibly being a bit harsh. I love Mission Impossible franchise. I think it's one of the coolest series of action movies ever. But that bit felt a bit, if it felt like this was the bit where they've gone, right, so we're calling it the Final Reckoning now, we're retooling it, we're restructuring these movies. Oh god, we've already shot 2/3 of this. How do we make this into something different? I know, we can just use loads of clips and we can have like a protracted intro sequences and protracted moments of him looking wistful as he remembers the stuff that's happened previously. And it was a strange way to open a film.
It was. I mean, I enjoyed the film. I just felt that it was a bit self-indulgent. And maybe that was because it was trying to evoke this sense of nostalgia for the previous films. But there were scenes that we basically kind of had twice. I don't know how spoilery or non-spoilery, because it's fairly new.
I think if there's stuff that's been in the trailers, and I think that's what you're alluding to, I think you can talk about stuff that's been in the trailers, but try to avoid any big plot spoilers. Yeah, it just came out this weekend, so
yeah, I can't remember if the shall we say the bit that happened twice near the end was in trailers or not.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So the plane bit just seemed to happen twice on one plane and then another one. I was like, this is tense. Yes, this is tense. This is tense. Okay, this is still tense because now I'm doing it on a different plane.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think they're very proud of the practical effects that they achieve for these films and the stunts Tom does, and also the stunt team does. They do not use huge amounts of CGI. There is a lot, and I don't know specifically how much of that plane stuff was real. I feel like a lot of it was, but it's difficult now because CGI has become so impressive that it's very hard when it's done well to actually differentiate it. And more than anything, it's not so much about using lots of four-screen obvious artifacts, i.e. their planes are obviously not CGI, but what they do a lot with CGI now is they put a lot of the background in. They change the composite so that, you know, they're adding elements to change the location and things of that nature. And that happens in a lot of shows and films, and you don't realize it because it's just these little tweaks that can very subtly alter the image, but CGI is present. So I'm sure there was plenty of that throughout this film, but the foreground elements, such as the elements of the planes that we were just talking about and the set piece that happened around that, without any spoilers, they are very, very proud of what they do with their stunts, and they should be. It is an incredible piece of practical filmmaking. It's shot wonderfully, but it did go on a really long time. The whole film goes on a long time. It's nearly
really
3 hours. It's nearly 3 hours long, and it does. And to be fair, the previous movie was the same, and I think even the ones before that were pretty damn long as well. But it feels a bit like we're getting to the end of the creativity. There is a second act set piece, which I will not spoil too much. Just to say, if you've seen the previous movie, the thing that they're searching for, they know we're looking for this submarine, the Sevastopol, and there's a second act set piece set around the Sevastopol and in the Sevastopol, which is brilliant. Like, it's practical filmmaking. I felt like I hadn't seen that before, and it felt tense and claustrophobic and frightening and exciting and also ridiculous because, you know, the reality of surviving any of that is so tiny that somehow superhero Ethan Hunt is able to basically survive everything and anything. But at this point, we have established that that's what that character can do. He's been through some crazy, outlandish stuff. So you obviously have to check the old reality at the door, like you would with a superhero movie when you go see the Mission Impossible movies. I think the other problem I have with these last two films, we'll call them the Dead Reckoning duology, or the Reckoning duology, is that the central conceit of the villain being the entity, which is this super AI evil creature in cyberspace. They use the word, by the way, cyberspace a lot in this movie, which is just comedy because nobody calls it that. Nobody's called it that in like 15 years, maybe 20 years, which speaks a lot to the age of the filmmakers, I think, and the writers of this, because it's nobody in tech says cyberspace, but that's fine. You know, your dad and your granddad who was going to go see this movie, they all know what cyberspace is. They remember back in the day, the newfangled internet, cyberspace is coming for us. Oh, and it's like, and I just think it funny how many times that was said. But anyway, this villain, this ghostly cyber creature evil thing, AI, everybody hates AI, is kind of poorly defined. And one of the things that I enjoyed a lot about the Chris McQuarrie, Tom Cruise Mission Impossible movies, when you go back to Fallout and you go back to Rogue Nation, you go back to Ghost Protocol, are the villains in those feel incredibly grounded and relatable and similar to Ethan in a way, right? So they're often a dark reflection of his place in the IMF. And by doing that, by grounding them, they give you a real sense of threat and they give you a sense of purpose for Ethan. When you have this nebulous villain, and the scale is literally world-ending level threat. And I mean, we have a sequence of nuclear holocaust in this movie, which I thought was very affecting and quite disturbing to watch, especially with the tensions that are happening right now in the real world. It's a bit, it kind of stops being a Mission Impossible movie and becomes something else in my mind. It's not so much about the gadgets and about the intelligent way, and instead we get quite a lot of scenes, very talky scenes, don't we, in this movie, where they just sort of they're talking a lot about the implications of political maneuvering and the implications of theologies and different ideologies and different concepts playing, you know, in this huge grand way. And it's like, I'm not sure what movie you guys think you're making, but that's not really a Mission Impossible movie. It wasn't bad, but it felt at times quite out of place. And again, like you said a minute ago, there felt like a lot of repetition in those scenes. Yeah. Like they kept going over the same ground and sort of hammering home the same ideas and plot points. And yeah, I did enjoy it. Like, I think I'm sounding quite critical. I did enjoy it. It's a solid like 3 out of 5 star movie for me. But it's a shame because I think the best Mission Impossible movies have gotten up to 5 stars.
Yeah,
like,
I'd agree with that.
So I felt like this was a dip. Did it work as a conclusion in your mind to the Ethan Hunt story?
No, I don't think it did, because I don't think there was a finished ending to it. I mean, again, spoileries, but funny enough, the day is pretty much saved. I think, you know, you can expect that going into a Mission Impossible film.
I'm not sure you can call it a spoiler saying Ethan Hunt wins the day. You know, I think we have to accept that. Yeah.
But I just feel they're kind of like, oh yes, this is finished, and they like, but it could all happen again.
It's a very strange final scene.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I get what they were doing. There's some symbology. I'm not going to go into the details of specifics, but basically, the characters all spend what feels like an age just sort of silently looking at each other and exchanging what are meant to be meaningful glances. And but you get that. You can imagine in like at the end of a movie, maybe one character doing that with one other character, and you have a little knowing look. But this is literally like 6 characters doing this, and you're like, this is weird. This is such a strange moment, and I got the impression they were trying to sort of convey a goodbye. But we've had these moments in previous Mission movies where there's always that thing at the end, the epilogue, where they all kind of, the team goes their separate ways until they're needed again, and that's where this feels like that. It doesn't feel like Ethan Hunt is wrapping up, right?
No,
they've really left the door wide open for more, which, considering what I've heard that Tom has been saying and stuff, is that he's going to do other films now. He wants to step away from this, and that's what it's looking like. He's got some of it. He's taken on a couple of projects, one for A24, where it sounds like he's going to be going back a bit to his kind of pre-action hero phase, his Vanilla Sky phase, that sort of stuff, where he was playing thrillers and complicated characters and people that aren't obviously heroic, which is exciting to me because that's some great Tom Cruise performances. But he's going to step away from Mission for a while. But I just think Tom Cruise in his 70s comes back for more. Like, I don't know if we need that.
No.
Like, we've had a much longer run here than anyone ever expected from this actor as this character, and they've been, for the most part, glorious fun. They're all entertaining in their own way, and some of them are certainly better than others. Shout out to Mission 2, directed by John Woo. That's a batshit mad movie. It's really, really good fun. And there's lots of great ones in there. But then his partnership with Chris McQuarrie and everything they've done together since they teamed up on these films has been really exemplary. It just felt like we've maybe not been able to stick the landing, and it's a little bit of a shame. A little bit of a shame. Was there anything else? Like, shout out to some of the supporting cast in this. I think Simon Pegg got to really show off his character's evolution and his acting in this one, and I thought he was really good. Yes. Benji's character was brilliant in this movie and got way more to do than he's ever done before, and step up into a leadership position, which was brilliant and exciting to see, and he absolutely crushes it. I really like Pom Khalif as the French assassin lady, who joins
Khalif or Clementif?
That woman. Mantis from Guardians of the Galaxy. Yeah. She was great. She's very fun to watch. What do you think about Hayley Atwell as the female lead?
I could watch Hayley Atwell eating a tea. I think she is brilliant. She's really, really lovely. I think I've preferred her in other roles. If you're comparing her to Dead Reckoning, I think her character was slightly more annoying in that one, because obviously she didn't get the whole, how bad this thing that she was doing was, how bad her stealing of the cruciform key was. And it was more obvious that she'd matured and she knew what was at stake in this film. But it was just like, I trust Ethan.
There was a lot of like blind trust and faith. And I think that was intentional. Because the whole concept is, the conceit of this is that the entity, this super AI, has basically been able to rewrite truth. It has complete control over all communications and every piece of media. It's deep fake technology taken to the millionth degree. It's the ultimate fear of this technology, that it can completely manipulate truth. So when there is no truth and there is nothing you can believe in, all you can have is faith. All you can have is belief in each other. And I think that was part of the big bit of Ethan in this, which he was this almost messianic figure, dare I say it. And it was it got pretty heavy handed in places with that. And you have to wonder how much of this is dictated. Obviously, Tom Cruise is massively involved with the story plotting, the scripting, the production, everything to do with these movies now. And it's a little bit hero complex maybe gone to the head there, but I'm making a lot of suppositions there, and I think that could be unfair, but it was a bit strange at times, uncomfortable at times to watch. I was sitting there going, okay, choices were made here, but that more of that really shows up when you think back on it, when you're in there in the cinema watching this. It is still a big spectacle film, great special effects, great music, really, really good music actually, that really makes you feel what's happening, and you really get, you really start to feel like the horror of what could happen if the entity wins. And it won't, it can't, right? Because it's never going to end like that in a Mission Impossible movie, but it convinces you well enough that it could. So you are able to get swept up in the jeopardy, and that's the strength of when these types of movies are done well. That's the joy of it, that you can believe that the impossible can happen, and that gives you enough convincing that therefore you think your heroes are going to struggle to achieve the end goal. For me, it was a case of trying to work out who was going to die and who wasn't going to die. And actually, more people walked away from this than I expected, to be honest.
I did think Benji might have been a goner.
Yes.
Yeah. There is another shout out that I want to do that occurred to me whilst I was sitting there, is I am impressed with the amount of women in the military in that film.
Yeah, there was, in general, I think Chris McQuarrie and Tom Cruise are very good multicultural and cross-gender casting in these films. They're really, really good at showing the capability of women. They've got a female president in this, and we also had the amazing Hannah Waddington as a rear admiral in command of a carrier strike group, which was super cool. and she was brilliant.
Yep.
She's great in everything.
And there was, and I cannot remember the actor's name, so please forgive me, actor. The lady who was the diver on the submarine, she was really cool.
She was really cool. I also can't remember the actor's name, but she's an up-and-comer that's been in a few things recently, and there are a couple more that are on some of my watch lists to check out. And she's got a real presence to her. She's got a really, like, intangible charisma. Yeah. She's very watchable and also brings an intensity even to a small role, and she does stand out. And also, shout out, can't remember his name, terrible, but Mr. Milchek from Severance as the sub commander was great to see. And he was also a very fun character that was supported Ethan in his quest, and was really enjoyable to see him in that type of role. And I do wonder sometimes, we got quite a few like TV actors show up in this movie, and I think it's awesome that, you know, they're casting their net wide to pick up the supporting cast, because I think TV now has transcended its place, hasn't it, where it used to be inferior to movies, and now a good actor in TV is a good actor in movies, is a good actor in anything. So yeah, great to see those people showing up. Very, very enjoyable. I mean, so my overall
thoughts was, I enjoyed it. The action pieces were brilliant, as I would expect them to be in Mission Impossible. However, I did feel it was slightly overly reliant on nostalgia, and it was a bit overindulgent. That's just the general feeling I get. I think I'm coming to it ebbs and flows for me. I'm kind of wanting something punchier and sharper now, rather than an overly indulgent movie. It just seems the way the world's going. It needs to be like short and snappy and to the point, and this wasn't quite.
Yeah, bring back 90-minute movies that tell a story well and that don't piss around repeating themselves. I'm all for that. Yeah, I'm all for that. Okay, let's now swerve into a very different type of movie. I don't think you've seen this one, Leah, but I watched this over the course of a couple of evenings because I couldn't get through it in one sitting, which should tell you a lot. This was a Minecraft movie. And I watched this out of what can only be described as morbid curiosity. It has garnered just shy of $1 billion globally already, and is still showing in a lot of screens due to its popularity. And yeah, this is the Minecraft film. Where to even begin? Let's start with the obvious. It's not a good movie, right? I mean, it's just not. It's not a good movie in terms of story, in terms of plotting, in terms of characters, in terms of special effects and how it looks. I think it looked really nice. I think it looked colourful and bright and appealing throughout, and I think they nailed the visuals of this movie. It looked really good. The bits in Minecraft, which is obviously the majority of it, look a lot like a prettier version of Minecraft. So everything is still boxy, but it's all kind of given a more, I want to say realistic, because I can't think of a better word for it, but like a cartoony, realistic bent to it. So it's more like a modded graphics pack enabled version of the boxy Minecraft world, right? The characters, we got Jason Momoa in there, Jack Black's in there, and then some completely forgettable ancillary characters. The only one I knew was Emma Myers, who's Wednesday's friend in the Wednesday TV show. I recognize her from that, but and she plays kind of the supporting character of there's like a generic geeky boy who's obviously that way in for that age group into this movie as well. I guess like I can be hypercritical of this movie, right? I didn't like it, but it isn't for me, right? So we were just talking about the weaponization of nostalgia that happened in the Mission Impossible movie, right? And how that's trying to pull people in to watch it. Minecraft does something similar. So it's pandering to people, to young people that grew up on Minecraft, and it's old enough now that there is an audience there, that there are people in their 20s that have disposable income, or even their 30s, that will go and see this film because they remember playing Minecraft when it first came out, or maybe they even still play Minecraft today, and it's got a huge player base. It's not a game I ever particularly connected with. I remember playing it a bit when it first came out, when it was first hugely popular, and going, oh, this is cool. It does give you a lot of freedom to create, and that's something the movie really pushes home in a big way. But I don't have that love for it as an IP. I just don't. My huge fear around this is that this made by committee, no edges, completely safe, benign beigeness of a film, at $1 billion is telling studios, "Oh, this is what we need to keep doing. This is what we need to keep doing." People don't want to be challenged. People don't want to have, things that are creative and original. People just want safe, warm, snuggly, predictable, a little bit funny at times, a little bit of tiny, childly, family-friendly peril just to keep it going, but something to put in the background or put on the video so the kids don't riot in the house and play over and repeat 10, 20, a million times. They want a Frozen. They want something that's just inoffensive in every way possible. Mass-produced slop that's never going to ask anything of you. And I'm a old school cinema fan, right? And this is the antithesis of everything I love. And I know that. So you have to kind of try and measure this on a fair scale, right? So as one of these, I think we can compare it to the Super Mario Brothers movie, I suppose, that was all CGI. Obviously, this has got Jack Black playing Steve as himself, Jason Momoa playing, I thought this quite fun kind of video game champion from the 80s, and he was this huge gamer champion, and now he's like fallen on hard times. No one remembers who he is, and he's trying to kind of keep his shop alive and try to reclaim some of his glory. And then generic geeky teen, generic put upon teen, and ancillary supporting comedy character as well, whose names will never enter my memory. I don't remember even the Garbage Man. Jason Momoa is called the Garbage Man because that was his nickname for being this video game champion. So I remember that, and I remember Steve. Jack Black gives 125% Jack Black. This is the most Jack Black you've ever seen Jack Black do. He is leaning into all of his silly sayings and mannerisms and musical bits, and it's a lot. But I know people have been critical of that. I think it works in this setting. I think it makes total sense. Like, you can't go, "Oh, it's not accurate to the character Steve," because Steve isn't a character. Steve is literally an avatar that you push around Minecraft to do your bidding. And there's a female version of that as well, I believe. He's not a character. There's no story to Steve, so you can't say Jack Black's interpretation is wrong. It's just an interpretation. It's Jack Blacking. And then Jason Momoa seems to be just having a lot of fun. I think he's realised very much that this isn't serious. This isn't a serious film to do serious acting or have a serious performance. I am here to be larger than life. I'm here clearly, as they all are, acting in green screen. Like, they are completely, the human actors are devoid of any physical context around them, and at times it really shows that they are stood in an empty room surrounded by green walls and green things, and somebody with a stick going, "Imagine this is a creeper," or "Imagine this is a pig dude," or "Imagine this is a sheep that's meowing and making weird noises and being all strange," or "Imagine this is another Minecraft creature." And it's like, yeah, that Jason Momoa knows to play in that world, you got to play big, right? So when the geeky kids and they're all trying to play it like bit downbeat and realistic, and it doesn't work, and they just stand out as awkward and wooden and uncomfortable throughout. So that was whatever. And then the other big thing, of course, I won't get any of the in-jokes. And that supposedly there's loads of in-jokes throughout this. And it almost feels like every scene is constructed to tell another Minecraft in-joke. So when that's your story and when that's your impetus, yeah, I'm going to hate it, aren't I? It's going to be crap because there's nothing here. There's literally nothing here. It's just visual set piece followed by visual set piece about a thing I don't understand. And that makes me sound very, very old. And I'm aware of that. Then I know, old man here doesn't get the joke. Ha ha ha, point at the old man. I tell you, if I'd seen that in a cinema full of screaming kids, I would have walked out after 5 minutes. There's no way I would have put up with that crap for that film. That is not cinema. That's not Star Wars or anything. I don't even know what to describe it. It's a non thing. It's like an extended 5-minute YouTube short that a creator's put together as a gag. Ha ha ha, look, I put myself in Minecraft. Ha ha ha, funny times. And it's like stretched that out to nearly 2 hours. It's just
so what
bad.
I'm hearing, what I think you're saying is that you kind of didn't enjoy it that much.
It's rare I have to take a break halfway through a film, for any reason, and I did. And even though it was set, I had it on, and I was just like, no, I can't. This is just painful, and it's boring. Like, it looks nice, but a lot of the scenes, and there was so much obvious character stuff. There was nothing interesting happening. They were kind of just like, here's some more CGI slop in front of you to try and distract you with, big pointless explosions or silly looking characters or, different Minecraft mobs. Nothing happens. It's dull. It's just dull, which is hard to do when it's what it is, this bright, colourful world. And yet it somehow found a way, I think, to be pretty boring. So I don't love the Super Mario Brothers movie like some people do, but that's a better film than this. That has character arc, that has story development, that has progression, and this just had set pieces. And like, all the characters are almost in the same people they are when they start on this quest, and there is some sort of very surface level character development, but it's all so obvious and predictable and slight. And then there's some like heavy-handed bits about, but the kid's like, but I don't like the real world because my creativity is punished, and I'm told I'm a geek and I have life be hard and get bullied, so I'm going to live here in the open world, overworld they call it, the overworld instead, and then where my creativity results in me creating a gun that's really effective at killing mobs.
Oh, okay.
Cool. You built a gun.
So
what's your message now, guys? You're literally encouraging gun violence in the pre-teens. I'm like, what is this?
Oh dear. Yeah, you're making it sound like there is no plot whatsoever. Is this accurate?
Steve is in the overworld, hiding from life, and then these others mistakenly end up in the overworld and then have to get out of the overworld.
Right.
That's the plot. Meanwhile, an evil pig lady wants the orb, which is a cube. Ha 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 ha. Jokes. To dominate something, to dominate the overworld for gold. Like, it makes some of the worst video game plots seem sophisticated. Like, honestly, it's just lazy. But it didn't need to be any better. That's the sad thing, and it's proven by $1 billion in the box office. This is what it needed to be: a committee-constructed, safe, predictable outing, not a cinema experience, an outing for the kids, right? And it's just visually appealing enough, whereas the parents won't mind being dragged to see it a sixth time, I suppose. And I think that's why they probably avoided going all CGI, why they put real actors into the film, because they were trying to make sure they could get the adult audience in the room, because the adult audience are the ones bringing the money. The kids, that's the thing, when you say $1 billion for a film, for a kids movie, that doesn't happen, right? So the movie has to have transgenerational appeal, and the way you can do that is by pushing those actors to be real in the film. But I mean, I'm a big fan of the Apple TV Plus TV series, The Studio, which is very, very biting, very clever satire of the film industry. And there's a whole episode in which they kind of try to cast this, again, like really vacuous tentpole movie based on an existing IP, and in the show it's a Kool-Aid movie. A Kool-Aid is this crappy drink in America, basically, and they've got to do a movie off that, and they're casting that, and they literally have a board with pictures of people. So they're not even doing like auditions. They're literally casting by just, how does that person look? What demo do they appeal to? We want a 4-quadrant movie, so we want to be able to put as much, we want to get that demographic in there. We want to get the men in there. We want to get the women in there. We want to get the different races represented so that we have a wide appeal there. And then the satire then in there is that they're trying so desperately to appeal that they end up accidentally making it an all-black cast, which then freaks them out because they're then saying Kool-Aid is only for black people. So it's this really like, and then they've actually written themselves out of the most profitable demographic, and it's this really awful, gross corporatization of creativity, which is nothing new, but oh boy, does the Minecraft movie feel like casting was done like that. That they literally went, right, we want Jack Black because he does silly songs and he's been around a while, so there'll be a nostalgia appeal to having Jack Black in it. We want Jason Momoa in there because he's this cool, hip, new action guy, which will appeal to that demographic. We want Emma Myers because she's that alt geeky girl from Wednesday, and she'll appeal to that demographic. We want the little teen boy because he'll appeal to that demographic. And it's just so obvious, and people fall for it every time, and it makes me sad.
But it's a kids' film at its heart, is it not?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, sure.
Okay. So, when is the last time you actually watched any kids' television?
No, but this isn't like kids' television, because kids' television now has become really uninspired and really, 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 really kind of weird, and it's not like this film. This film is it's a kids' film, but it's a video game movie first, right? So it's in the same way that the Super Mario Bros. Movie. They're trying to capture the gamers, right, and get them in, and that's why it's so full of these in-jokes and references to the Minecraft experience at the cost of any kind of story or actual logical character development. So yeah, I would love to. I mean, I wonder if there was even a screenplay written, or if it was like just set pieces, sort of like on a board, like this in joke will develop this set piece around it, and then that will move to the B in joke, which develop this set piece around it. All the words in between, and none of that matters. Maybe we'll just do improv it or write it on the day, and Jack Black will do a song and he'll make something up on the spot, and it'll be great. I'm just curious, like, what that creative experience must have been for the people involved. Just weird, I suspect. Very peculiar. It's bad. It's bad. I mean, if you don't have kids, don't bother. Like, it's bad. 1 star.
To be fair, there is no way in hell I am ever going to watch this film. Ever. Because I don't like Minecraft, for starters. I could never, ever get behind the blocky cube graphics. And it just put me off. So, me watching this is never going to happen. Ever. So, you took one for the team.
I did.
Well
for the 8 Dead Giants, I've put myself through Minecraft, so you don't have to. Right. Let's talk about the final movie. Another big movie that just came out on Apple TV Plus, directed by Guy Ritchie. Couldn't believe that when I saw that in the credits, the opening of the film. That's A Fountain of Youth, starring John Krasinski and Natalie Portman. I watched it last night. I'm guessing you must have done as well because it only came out on Friday.
It was fine. It was enjoyable. I don't think it had any meat or anything behind it, though, really. I mean, I preferred National Treasure, thinking about it.
So the very sort of slight setup for this movie is that John Krasinski and Natalie Portman, brother and sister, they are kind of part of a lineage of historical Tomb Raiders, kinda. It's poorly defined, ones. Shall we say. It's not the most clear if Dad was good guy or bad guy in what he did.
No, I think he was good guy. That's the whole thing about him, that he was a good guy. He was an archaeologist and not a Tomb Raider.
Oh, I guess because part of the problem is John Krasinski's character is being accused of being more of a Tomb Raider, and he's not doing it for the sake of the artifact, but he's doing it to make money.
Or fame or recognition.
Yes. And so he's got himself on a quest to find the Fountain of Youth because of Donald Gleason's billionaire character that sort of tasked him with doing that, and that's the setup. And then that's the movie. So we kind of bounced through a few different set pieces, very sort of around art heists and clues, and yet somehow, like, this is a family-friendly Guy Ritchie movie, which to me, I guess, has shaved off every interesting edge of his filmmaking to make it as palatable as possible, and therefore you have typical unlikable Guy Ritchie characters, but without any charm, because their charm often comes from them being able to swear constantly. So because of that, you just have your brother and sister played by decent actors who you just don't give a monkeys about. Like, I didn't like them at all. It seemed to be
lacking a sweetness, I think.
Just any heart. Like, I didn't, I mean... So Natalie Portman's storyline starts off with her like having a meeting with this husband who is divorcing her, by the way, he's the one that had infidelity, correct? And yet he's fleecing her for everything, including custody of their child. I'm not sure how that works, but I didn't think that's how that worked in a divorce situation. If he's the cheat, the scumbag, and it's known, how can he be suing her for anyway? I guess I'm getting sidetracked there, but it just felt weird that was happening and he was being vilified, but yet it was very strange. And then we meet. So one of the ways they try to bring heart in, I think, is bringing her son along. What? This is going to sound bad, I guess, and I'm just going to say it though, right? Natalie Portman's really hot. Her husband is really hot. That kid didn't look like their child. It was like, what happened? Adopted? Like it couldn't have been blood.
I think so.
No, it was blood, was it? It was meant to be blood relation. Tell me, am I wrong? Am I being unfair on this child actor, whose name I will never know?
You are being a little bit unfair, because there was nothing wrong with the child actor. He was perfectly lovely. It's just that Natalie Portman and this random actor dude that they got to play her husband was so incredibly hot, and the kid just looked like a normal kid. That's the problem.
He looked a bit ugly, more than normal. He looked a bit ugly.
No, he looked normal. He looked fine. It was fine. I mean, I think maybe they were trying to play up that he was a musical prodigy.
So it was ugly.
I can never say the word. But no, so that he was a bit like geeky. I don't know. But I can see what you mean. The fact that they are literally two stunning people and they've made an ordinary child. But he was only just ordinary. He was not ugly. He maybe looked a bit geeky. But that's it.
To be clear, right? When you cast relations in films, TV, be it kids, brothers, etc., like look at Natalie Portman and John Krasinski. They don't exactly look alike, but they look like you could believe that they could be related, right? That they've got brown hair, they've got, they're both quite, tall, they're good looking. They kind of look similar enough, right? You see what I'm saying? And it's not normally something I notice. Is what I'm getting at. It's not normally something that stands out as so egregious. But the moment I saw this kid, it totally pulled me out of any kind of level of believability for that character. I was like, what the hell is this casting? Is he someone's son? Is that Guy Ritchie's son? Like, that's the only thing I can think of. Like, or the producer said, you have to put my kid in the film, otherwise we're not going to give you money. Because it felt like any attempt at, like, believable casting was just completely ignored. Or did they look like, maybe what happened is they had someone else and they fell through last minute and they had to get like the caterer's kid to step in, who just happened to be on set that day because the main guy didn't show up. I mean, something happened there, because films don't normally do like as bad as that. It really stands out. It really, really does. I was like, what is this? This is weird. But to be honest, I think that's, so the kid, the reason I kind of mentioned that, I think the kid was where the heart of the film was meant to be. Didn't work. Like, it didn't bring anything to it. I fell asleep towards the end of this movie in the third act. I got so bored.
Oh dear.
I was so bored. I drifted off. Like, it's just, you'd think it would be fun at the very least, right? That the various set pieces, it's Guy Ritchie, right, would be inventive and amusing, and there'd be some villains to want to defeat, and even the villain stuff was kind of inconsistent because they're portrayed more as protectors of the Fountain of Youth. They're not really bad guys. If you've seen the Mummy movies, you remember that faction that are trying to keep the tomb safe and hidden and to prevent it being discovered. It's kind of that kind of vibe, right? So this uber capable special forces types, and so they're not really villainous. So then there's this sort of third act twist of a villain, but it's pretty quick and not particularly interesting, and it kind of comes out a bit out of nowhere. So you don't have that to root against either, and super obvious, yeah. And it just doesn't really, so you don't have that to get behind either. So you just have these two unlikable brother and sister who, because it's brother and sister, you have no opportunity for any kind of romantic sparks that could liven things up like you do in National Treasure, right? Because you remember in National Treasure, Nick Cage kind of kidnaps the historian lady and therefore to help, and therefore they kind of have this little spark and it's exciting, and they're just so charismatic and they play off each other really well. But you can't do that because it's brother and sister.
Diane Kruger.
Yes, well remembered. I think you're right. Yeah.
Thank you.
And so you can't do that. So everything just feels really dry and really basic. And they try to do a bit of a brother sister kind of like needling each other thing. And I feel like that whole time Kaczynski's getting into that more than Natalie Portman. Natalie Portman's just like having none of it.
Yeah.
She plays it really straight and really kind of buttoned down for most of the movie. And Kaczynski by himself is quite fun, but because he's got nothing to play off of, he just comes across as kind of, I'm a dick and I don't really give a crap about anyone. And it was just very much a slog.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, you're right. I mean, I'm comparing it to National Treasure because they're both kind of like following the mystery, Indiana Jones type things, but it just lacked the charm that it needed.
Yeah.
And it wasn't believable because even the supporting cast was a bit meh.
I don't really... Tessa Thompson, Valkyrie was in it from the Marvel Universe, but like wasted, given very little to do.
I didn't even realise that was her.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I could be wrong. I didn't look it up, but I thought I recognised her. But she just given very little to do. Donald Gleason's in it, but again, he's not given a lot to do. Maybe a bit more in the final act, but he kind of just sort of floats through the movie. I can't really think of anybody else in it. There's a guy playing like the Interpol agent who has an opportunity to be more, but kind of squanders it, I guess. And it's like, oh, this is going to be fun. He's going to be flamboyant. And then they kind of drop that and he's just not interesting by the time we get to the third act. The villain, the almost villain character played by, I want to say, is that Eliza Gonzalez? I want to say.
Something like that.
She's always a stunningly beautiful young woman, and she always performs well in all of her roles. But again, she's not given good material. Like the writing, the script isn't sharp enough, it isn't interesting enough, it doesn't do enough new to keep you engaged. And even the set pieces and the action, the car chases and stuff, they're all very basic and uninteresting. And this is kind of talking about, what I talked about in terms of the final reckoning right at the beginning, right? This is a film made by Apple for Apple. And it's made for home consumption. And I do believe these films that are being made specifically for streaming are different to the films that are made for theatrical distribution, especially in the action space. They are made safer. They are made a little bit more boring. They're made with less money. They are made with less verve. There feels like there's less passion in them. It feels like there's less excitement. There's a lot of these films that come out of this nature which go straight to streaming and feel like, because they're going into a world where they are confident they're not going to be seen by nearly as many people, this feels like the effort isn't quite the same that's put into it. What do you think? Is that fair?
I think yes. I mean, it feels like, again, the edges have been smoothed off of this thing until it's a sphere of dullness. But I think the streaming services could do better than this. They have an opportunity to do some really interesting things, and they're just not, especially with this film, because we saw trailers and it looked fun. I mean, John Krasinski is adorable. He has got that charm. He has got that effervescence that you need. But it just, you're right, he didn't have anything to play over. I think Natalie Portman was too focused on being, I have to be, I'm the mother in this. I'm the mother of my son. I have to keep him safe. I have to be sensible. I have to be boring. And she just didn't give him anything to play off of. And therefore, he seemed just like a not nice person. There was no charm. Do you get what I mean? It just didn't work.
It didn't. It was very disappointing. I think if Mission Impossible was 3, Minecraft was 1, this is a 2, and I think I'm being maybe even a bit generous with a 2. 2 stars on this one. That's the thing. Everybody involved has done better before, and we know they can do better. And that's why it's so disappointing, because from the directors to the stars, you've seen them all do better things. So when you see something as mediocre as this, you start to wonder why. And it's like, was this involvement from an Apple or an executive that just took every edge off. It could have been Guy wanted to make a really super safe, family-friendly movie, and this is the best he could do, maybe. I don't know. But it felt like there was involvement that made this banal and beige in every way possible. And it was, just a big disappointment. I was looking for a bit more fun in there. Okay, so that, I think... brings us to the end of the movie giant. That was the big section of the show, but we're going to head now off into a giant I don't think we've really done before. I touched on one in the first episode, but we're going to get into some books talk. Okay, let's have a little chat about some books. Leah, you've brought a book you really want to talk about and tell everybody about on today's episode.
Yes, I have. People who know me, I am massively into vampire mythology, vampire fiction and whatnot. This is Empire of the Vampire by J. Kristoff. And it is a bit different than the vampire stuff I normally read. You mean, normally, I'm not a Twilight person. I don't do sparkly vampires. Thank you. They can stay over there. I'm more of a kind of Anne Rice type of person, vampire Lestat, etc., which is something we will talk about in the future. But this is a true horror vampire book, and it is dark. I'm talking horrifically dark. It starts off by basically, as far as I can tell, a kind of volcanic eruption that covers the world in ash, so there is no longer any daytime. And the world is fucked. I mean, a lot. The vampires basically start taking over the world. It is just, horror at its best. There is no kind of romance with the vampires at this point. It's corruption as well. It's not even just corruption of the vampires. You kind of soon figure out that the guys who are supposed to be good are just as bad as the vampires. And they're using the excuse of, we have to do everything we can to stop the vampires. It's just an excuse to be horrible and to do horrible things. It's kind of set, I want to say, in... it would be Templar times. So the people who are fighting against the vampires are a monastic order.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it is. It's really cool. The hero, Gabriel de Lyon, I think he is meant to be French in this, is actually discovered to be a half vampire. So that's how he has the power to fight against them, etc. But basically, this monastic order makes their guys into drug addicts. Because how do they enhance their powers? They snort vampire blood dust.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah. I mean, and it just goes into they're a monastic order, they're soldiers of God, but again, they're doing awful things as soldiers of God. It kind of skips around in different time frames. So you see him as like a novice monk being brought into this order, and then the beginning of the book, he's being captured by the vampires and he is the last surviving vampire hunter. So you know from the very outset, this is not going to go well. So you kind of flip between he's telling his story to his vampire captors, then again to the beginning of his kind of like mission as a vampire hunter. And then he kind of comes out of retirement in the third time frame that the book goes through, and it's kind of he finds, I don't want to, again, how much spoilers do you want to do? This book was in 2021, so if you haven't read it, either you want to read it or you don't. Well,
do you, is it going to be adapted? Has anybody picked it up?
Not I know of. The second book is out, which I have not as read as yet, because I kind of want to wait for the third book to come out before I read the second, because then if I really, really, really love it, which I'm sure I'm going to, I could just go straight into the third one, because I think it's supposed to be a trilogy. So it's just, I mean, he finds something that could possibly, shall we say, bring the world back from darkness. But even that doesn't go well. So it's just, It's really dark. It's proper horror, and no one's a good guy.
How is it horror?
Just the visceral gore that is described and the downtroddenness of the entire planet, because they're basically being taken over by vampires, the whole world.
Sounds really cool. I thought it was going to be a modern setting. So hearing it, it's like historical, before the Dark Ages. Like, are they gonna? Do you think it's going to try and tie into reality? Like, because obviously during the Dark Ages we lost a lot of knowledge and stuff. Do you think it's going to kind of try and connect?
I think it's kind of bringing that into it. It's like, because the world is covered in ash and there's, you get a little bit more light during the day, and it's definitely still darker at night, but it's still dark enough that vampires can roam during the day. But it obviously, crops struggle to grow. There's more vermin. The world becomes a wasteland because of the lack of light. So it's definitely, there are some Dark Ages things going on there as well. There's a lot of torture and like burning people for witchcraft and stuff going on as well.
So the Empire part, are the vampires like ruling humanity, or are they just feeding on us, or like are we talking like they have set up a platform to control and breed us, or like what we
so the kind of concept is that this event that shrouds the earth happens, and then the vampires kind of start consolidating, usually under the big bad, I guess, is called the Forever King, who is head of his own vampire family, and he generally just starts to conquer the earth bit by bit, and so
where's it set?
It's in Europe. Definitely Europe. I mean, the setting kind of, I say mostly it starts in France, and then it goes to different places. There is a kind of like some flashbacks to people living nearer the equator where it's safer because there's more light.
Because it's light.
Yeah.
That's clever.
And that's kind of the heroes of the book. That's kind of his little slice of peace that he manages for a time, shall we say. He goes south, and there's it's a little bit safer, I should say, because there is still nighttime, so you're still bollocks either way.
That sounds really cool. Yeah, it sounds like I'd enjoy.
You would.
That.
I think you really would, because there is a slight bit of romance, but it's definitely not the focus of the book.
I can handle that as long as it's not the main driving factor. Not. That's fine. I'll have to check it out, because I mostly listen to audiobooks rather than read fiction. I only read non-fiction, and I'll have to check it out and see if the narrator is one I can get on with.
Yeah.
So if it is, I'll pick that up. That would be really good. Sounds fun. And hopefully, I suspect that's going to be adapted. It sounds like something that would get picked up.
Yeah, I really hope so.
Honestly.
I'm planning to read the second and third as soon as the third one comes out.
My question for you is, when you read it, does it feel expensive? If they try to film it, does it feel like, oh no, that costs too much money, or do you think they could do it on a budget?
It's a kind of travelling adventure.
Ooh. That sounds expensive.
It does sound like it could be expensive, yeah.
Oh, okay. So it's like a quest.
Yeah.
There's like a quest that results in lots of travelling across the earth.
And running away from things.
Yeah, that could be pricey.
Yeah.
Okay. I think we'll wrap up the books there and move straight into TV, because I know you've got a related thing you wanted to talk about.
I do.
TV. So let's head to that. Okay, we're back with the TV giant, and we're going to keep the vampire train rolling. So tell us a bit about your TV picks for this episode.
Okay, so this is not a new one, but because I read Empire of the Vampire, it reminded me of this TV series, which is Van Helsing, which ran from 2016 to 2021. And it's quite similar in tone.
So let me just say, I think most people are going to be very familiar with the early 2000s Van Helsing film starring Hugh Jackman and Kate Beckinsale, both early in their careers, but it's a complete romp of that era. Is the TV show like that?
No. This is dark. And again, it has the same kind of a similar concept that pollution has kind of overtaken the planet. And it's not a total shrouding of the earth, but it's enough that vampires can come out during the day, which I think is an interesting concept, which is kind of why I like both of these.
Yeah, it's difficult though, isn't it? Because having a vampire being able to come out during the day kind of makes you, it kind of stops it being a vampire almost. And that's like one of the things that makes a vampire unique and quite threatening and scary is its proclivity for darkness. So by kind of, but I guess what you're saying is it doesn't mean that they come out during the day. They come out because it's always dark.
Yes.
And that's different if you think about it, because that means that it's a scary world because it's a world always in darkness.
Yeah. So this is a bit different. I think there was actually a volcanic eruption that partially covered the earth, but then the vampires basically took over enough to increase pollution so that the earth remains partially shrouded. They've literally got things pumping out more dust and more dirt into the air.
Okay.
So the premise of this is you kind of start at the beginning when the eruption happens and people are like, oh, it's dark. Oh, well, I'm sure it'll clear soon. Then you start to hear the screaming and the snarling and the ripping, and quite a lot of people die. You cross the main character, which is Vanessa, later Vanessa Van Helsing. And she has a temper problem, but she's kind of she's a single mother looking after her only daughter, and she goes to defend her next door neighbour who's been beaten up by her boyfriend. That kind of is the start of the show. And then vampires break in, steal her daughter, and she fights back but is rendered unconscious. But in a way that she pretty much beats up the vampires quite a lot as well. And I believe accidentally has a taste of their blood or some such like that. And that's where the story starts. Then it gets interesting because she goes into a coma while the world is imploding around her and is then guarded by special forces because the government at the time realizes that she's some sort of special person who can help them fight against vampires. So they order a special forces squad to guard her in a hospital, and she kind of wakes up sometime later.
Okay. So we're kind of doing the Walking Dead 28 days later riff as well. So a show clearly informed by its peers. That's interesting. I'm intrigued. I'm kind of amazed I missed this. I probably saw the name Van Helsing and a gender twist casting and went, oh God, all right, like that, because it just feels very try hard. But this is one of those situations where I almost feel like the name Van Helsing has probably hurt the show.
I would think so. Yeah.
Because I certainly, when I hear that, I think of that movie, Hugh Jackman, Kate Beckinsale. I don't.
So yeah, it's kind of, and it really goes places. I mean, I've watched all of this, and then there's what Vanessa herself turns into, which is this kind of like anti-vampire vampire. It turns out that her bite actually turns vampires back into humans.
Huh.
Yeah. There's that. There's time travel. There's...
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Weird time travel as well. There's like forms of suspended animation. It turns out that her mother isn't actually her mother, and I won't. Again, there's a lot to go through because I think it went for 5 seasons, but it is really actually fresh and original. And I agree with you that the name Van Helsing didn't do it any favors, but in all honesty, you couldn't call it anything else.
Okay.
Because of what happens, and it's literally all about the family Van Helsing.
Does it have a conclusion?
Yes.
Oh, that's good. So it didn't just get cancelled. It actually has an ending.
Yes.
Oh, excellent. I might have to check this out. Where can we go and see it? Because I bet you most people listening to this have never watched this.
'Tis on Netflix.
Ah, okay. That's a cool recommendation. Yeah. That sounds really cool.
Yeah. There's a lot of actors that come and go throughout it, but I remember Trisha Helfer from Battlestar. She is
incredible. Yeah.
The big bad at the end. She comes in partway through, but yeah. And I mean, there's a human who's deaf and also a serial killer who gets made into a vampire.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you want to move us on to your, I'm going to say, very different other TV
Very different
for this episode?
Very different indeed. So Tracker on Disney. This is Justin Hartley. I always get his name right. I always remember the J.R. Hartley TV adverts when I think of his name. So this is Justin Hartley, who has been in. I want to say he was in. Oh, what was it? Smallville?
He was Green Arrow in Smallville.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he was in it was a different TV show that was Just Us or something like that, about a family, and it had me in tears for years and years and years. But this is him in Tracker. Basically, he calls himself a rewardist, which means he goes I know, it is an odd phrase. He basically goes and helps people who have set out a reward for something, like, find my missing daughter, here's $20,000. Find where my husband went, here's $50,000, type of thing. So right. He is a loner who has friends. He has difficulty, I say, connecting with them because he is a survivalist / rewardist. He had an odd upbringing with his brother and his sister and his parents. His dad died in mysterious circumstances, and it's basically him. It's kind of like episode of the week. I'm gonna go off of here and rescue this person, etc. But it is interesting and fun, and I like it.
Okay, but it's what, like police procedural?
I'd say so, definitely. Yeah, it's based on books. I think they're by Jeffrey Deaver.
Okay.
So, but Justin Hartley is good. He's got a solid kind of crew behind him. His brother is Jensen Ackles from Supernatural and Soldier Boy in The Boys. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and he plays his older brother Russell, and they have a quite fun kind of jokey / antagonistic relationship. Because Russell's special forces, and he's darker.
Sounds a bit like it might be a little bit Reacher inspired.
I can see why you would think that, but it's quite different. It's definitely more light-hearted than Reacher. He's not quite as intense as Reacher is. It's definitely played on a more light-hearted note. He has his tech expert, and then he has his lawyer who gets him out of trouble. Because he doesn't have a badge or anything like that. He goes around. He's got one of those really nice classic Airstreams, which is like a fancy caravan, and he drives a big ass truck with it. So he basically goes all over America. So yeah, it's interesting. Okay.
Anything else you wanted to add on Tracker, or are we good?
I think we're good. Yeah, I mean, it's not as deep. It's definitely, for me, fluff TV, something that I can just watch whilst I'm doing something else. But it is interesting, and I do like it.
Awesome. I mean, this is why I like having different giants on. We get different recommendations and different things that people are watching or playing or, as we're about to get to, listening to.
Ooh.
So a giant that we have yet to represent here, we are going to represent now for the first time on 8 Dead Giants, and it's music. And I think I'm going to again let Leah take the lead on this one. And what music have you brought to talk about for this episode?
So I have brought the album From Zero by Linkin Park. This is the first album that Linkin Park have released with their new lead singer after the tragic loss of Chester Bennington. And for many years, I couldn't listen to Linkin Park songs because I got too upset. But this is just amazing. I mean, how did you feel when you first saw the video? Because you sent it to me. How did you feel when you first saw, oh my God, they're back?
Yeah, I was. It's a mix of feelings, isn't it? Because I think Hybrid Theory was a seminal album for me. I think I was 16 when it came out, and I remember or something around there, and listening to it in sixth form break room on a crappy CD player, and then listening to it all the time at home on my stereo, and then following that band's trajectory from there through Meteora and the various other albums, though they're less impactful on me than those first two, which were really hit me at the right age, which is that formative time in your life where you're listening to all kinds of music and really open-minded about different music, and where you fall in love with the kind of music that you're probably going to be a fan of for the rest of your life, and that's where that new metal sound, that mixture of metal, rock, and an MC, and then also DJ elements as well from Mr. Han as well. It felt like a really new sound, felt really creative. The lyrics obviously spoke to me as an angry teenage boy as well. It was just amazing. So obviously when Chester passed, and the way he passed is just such a tragedy and so preventable. And that's just, and things have come on a long way since then in terms of mental health as well. But, it was a loss that I felt for, permanently from that time. And it's not often a celebrity, an actor, a singer, whatever, their loss will resonate with me quite that much. I think him and Paul Walker from the Fast and Furious franchise are the two that have stuck with me and I still get upset about. So yeah, when I first saw that they were back and they had a new lead singer and it was still going to be called Linkin Park, I was, I guess, a bit apprehensive, but more than anything excited to see what they'd do, because I didn't think Mike and their other band members would have come back like that if it wasn't right, and if it didn't feel like that they would still be Linkin Park. So obviously my anticipation for this album, apprehension, excitement, and then they started putting out singles. But then I think it's the album itself which is such a true representation of the band and of the sound. I've always been a fan of listening to albums, and I think that's where me and you differ. You're more of a singles person.
Yeah.
But that the album From Zero it's remarkable because it's still Linkin Park, and yet it now has Emily Armstrong, a female lead singer, in that place of Chester. And you'd think, how is that possible that this can still be Linkin Park? And yet her ability on the vocals to do a lot of what Chester could do, but then also brought her own character and her own approach to the music. And I think, they showed early on them doing some covers, well, you can't call them a cover, doing her in the vocal position of Chester in some of their classic discography, but then her doing the new stuff in From Zero is just brilliant. It's a pretty close to perfect album. It has, they're almost all of the songs are top tier. There's maybe a couple I like a little less than the others, but it's just amazing. It's a fantastic album, and it's timely that we're talking about it today because they've just brought out the special edition of the album, which is a 2-disc set with I think 3 more new tracks and also some live recordings included as well. yeah, just I love it too. Yeah, it's a fantastic album. But yeah, you brought this today, so I want you to talk more about it as well.
So I mean, you sent me the video of their first release, and I think I was in the car park at my work, just about to get out of the car, and I saw Linkin Park, and I was like, holy shit, there's a new Linkin Park. So I immediately started watching it, and you see Mike first, I think for the first verse, and then it goes into the chorus, and then you see Emily, and she is just amazing. She is such a good singer, and she has the range, and she can do, I won't say exactly like Chester did, because that's not fair. They're two different, distinct people, and I enjoy still listening to what Chester did, and I enjoy listening to what Emily's now. But it just rekindled my love for Linkin Park so much. And like you said, I am more of a single person, but I listen to this album on repeat in the car all the time. I think my Spotify or my YouTube or whatever told me I was in the top 2% of listeners for this album because I love it that much. It is amazing. Just amazing.
Do you have a favourite song?
Now that is really, really difficult because when the first couple of singles came out, I really loved them. But then the album came out and I listened to more of that. I think, I don't think I do, because I love all of them, but I love listening to them in album order as well. And just the ebbs and flows of the album, which is really unusual for me.
Yeah, I think a well-constructed album song list, a lot of thought goes in when it's done well to the order of the songs and how they will play into each other, and the kind of if not the actual story, but the emotion that the entire experience of listening to the album is trying to convey, that will really be taken into account. And I think this album does that. I think Good Things Go right at the end. The final song in the album is really a powerful one for me. It's one of the less heavy ones, but I think there's an incredible double vocals there from Emily and Mike, and how the interplay between them. It's a very emotional track. The whole album is so emotional because this is an album. It's a really fine line that they're trying to tread here, right? And they've done it, and they've actually succeeded at this, which is they are obviously trying to honor and connect with the historical fan of the band, right? But they're also trying to make an album and relaunch themselves to appeal to new listeners. So you can't just try to copy what they did before, but you also have to, with your new stuff, still feel like Linkin Park. And I don't know how they did it, but I mean, it's props to that whole band, but especially to Mike and Emily, where Mike does a lot of the production, and the thought that must have gone into the writing and the construction of the music is so impressive. It doesn't happen by accident that you have the success that this has had, and it has absolutely exploded. And it isn't just, though a large portion of it will be, it isn't just old fans coming back wanting to see what's been done, but they're touring, they've got loads of cross promotional things going on, really smart cross promotional, their appearances, the way they're putting themselves out there, they're grafting, they're working it hard, and I respect that so much. They knew this would be difficult. And I think in many ways, much like when the original Linkin Park launched and the Hybrid Theory was a big hit, the real test will be the second album. And I think can they keep the evolution going forwards and keep people interested and excited? Because Linkin Park's sound changed a lot over the time they were a band when Chester was there. Over those 4 or 5 albums, their music really went through different phases with different approaches, and it never stayed the same. It never stayed as just a new metal rock band. They evolved. They went lighter at times. They went into more into the DJ elements with Mr. Han, and then they went back to heavy stuff, and they kind of moved around. So, the one constant in Linkin Park was always change. So I'd be very curious to see how they approach their sophomore album since this relaunch. But I loved Good Things Go. I thought The Emptiness Machine got a lot of play. That was the first single, but I think The other favorite for me is Two-Faced. I love Two-Faced because it feels like a song from
Yeah,
1997, and that takes me way back to that era, and it feels like that's a song that Linkin Park could have made at that time. And there is, of course, that nostalgia feel. We've talked a lot about nostalgia in today's episode and how that appeals to you and how it connects to you. But I do think, these guys, they've done what, in terms of films, the Jurassic Park, Jurassic World, in terms of Tron, Legacy, Ares, in terms of so many other properties have attempted, but more often than not failed, and it feels hollow and it feels like a cash-in. I think what Linkin Park has done here feels genuine, it feels real, and they have cached some nostalgia, but at the same time, they've made some brave forward movement and creative steps, which is so impressive because it's so hard to do. So yeah, just incredible. It's one of the best albums maybe ever made for because of everything, because of the history, but because of those steps as well.
YouTube has told me things, and apparently, according to YouTube, my favourite one is Stained, which is one of the tracks off the album.
Interesting.
Which is interesting for me because I usually do go with singles.
I wouldn't have expected you to have picked Stained, but yeah, okay. Yeah, it's good. They're all good. The only one I maybe don't love is Cut the Bridge, which I find a bit basic, but as a melody and as a vocal arrangement. But they're still great. And I'm excited. And they put out 3 more songs since the album came out. Now there's a special edition, and I'll probably be double dipping for that. I got the LP of the original and of the first album, and I'll pick that up as well at some point for special edition. But no, great to talk about some music. Great that you've engaged with an album the way you have, because I know it. Like you said, it's a rarity. And I'm always excited to hear the next song they put out. I feel like music, especially rock music, has been very stagnant for the last few years. The bands that you love and remember are still putting out music, but it's often just the same thing they've always done. And some are good and some are bad, but I haven't been engaged by new stuff like this in a long time, in a good 4 or 5 years. So I think we talk about the impact COVID had on TV and film a lot, but I think COVID really affected the music industry as well. Had a huge negative impact on the creativity of what was being produced there, because for a long time they couldn't support themselves with live tours, right? And that's where most of the money now comes from in music, is the live shows, because so little comes from streaming. And nobody really buys albums. So the LPs, the vinyl is helping, but not in the same way as CDs sold, when they were at their peak. That was a lot of money. So yeah, it's an interesting world now that we see music, but it's great to talk some music with you, and to share that love for sometimes a band that gets a bit ridiculed, doesn't it? Being a fan of Linkin Park, you get looked at a bit like, it's almost like saying you're a fan of NSYNC or something. You get looked at like you were talking about being a fan of a boy or a girl group, because there was that myth, wasn't there? Do you remember when they were constructed
and they weren't,
and it was a manufactured band, and it's not true, and it was just naysayers trying to tear them down, right? That always that tall poppy syndrome, people going after the thing that succeeds, and try to ridicule and thing. And there's been a lot of stuff aimed at Emily as well, Emily Armstrong, for some of her personal stuff and some of her private life stuff, which I'm not going to get into now because I don't think it really warrants the airtime, other than to say, as a band, as a unit, as an individual, they've all gone through that incredibly well, stayed united, stayed strong, and just going strength to strength. New songs come out, another promotional material comes out, another thing comes out, they do another thing on YouTube or whatever, and they're everywhere. They're almost as big as, if not bigger than when Hybrid Theory hit, and Meteora. It's absolutely ridiculous how massive the band is now.
Yeah. So I think it's really cool that they're at an age now where I think it's one of their guitarists is basically, he records albums with them, but he doesn't like going on tour because he doesn't like loud things. So he doesn't. I think it rocks.
Well, yeah, they're at a place where I think they've got a lot of control over the brand, over the band, over what they do, when they do it, how they do it. I suspect that was built into any deals that they made, because Mike is a very canny operator and has learned a lot from his time in the business. So love that. Going to continue to support them, and maybe one of these days go and see them live, which would be awesome. Well, that was another episode of 8 Dead Giants on a sleepy Saturday afternoon, with a new giant bringing us conversations around other new giants. which we hadn't talked about before, which is fantastic to have. Thank you for joining me, Leah.
Oh, it's been so cool. I've got to talk about things that I don't normally get to talk about. And now you're going to watch Van Helsing, aren't you?
I am seriously tempted. I might have to give it a go. Yeah,
Yeah.
I might have to give it a go. It sounds really cool.
Yeah.
I honestly knew none of that. I had no idea it was like that. So I'm really keen to check that out. We'll be back next week. But in the meantime, please like and subscribe on YouTube. We are everywhere a good podcast can be found. So you don't have to just watch us on YouTube or listen to us on YouTube, as it were. But yeah, we're on Spotify, Amazon Music / Audible. We're on iTunes. Leave us a like, give us a review, 5 stars only, please. That's my only request. And then, let's see where the 8-Days Giant goes and how it evolves. And maybe there'll be some videos coming in the future as well. Ooh, teaser. So until next time, that was a lot of fun. Thank you again, Leah. And we'll be back soon. See you next week.